What's up, everybody? We got the markets doing some stuff. Urgent update. We got the main men of the hour, Kevin Svenson and Matthew Hyland, two of my favorite people I've been following, look up to, and also have brotherly love for. We're going to be diving into these charts, talking about are there traps setting up? Do we have the impetus to actually push through 100K tonight, even with the ETFs closed? All this and more. So everybody, while we're waiting, we got this, let's get this music playing for about 2.5 minutes or so. And everybody live, retweet this, get this going out. We're going to be diving in here momentarily. So let's get these tunes playing and we're going to dive in here in just a moment.
Bitcoin, pump, altcoins, pump. I've been preparing for this. Can't nobody tell me nothing. Bitcoin, pump, altcoins, pump. I've been preparing for this. Can't nobody tell me nothing. Bitcoin, pump, altcoins, pump. I've been preparing for this. Can't nobody tell me nothing. Bitcoin, pump, altcoins, pump. I've been preparing for this. Can't nobody tell me nothing. SEC and its policies rely on whatever Gary thinks. Bitcoin to flight to quality. I heard that from Larry Fink. Every hour losing purchasing power on foolish out there. It's not our fault. Blame the coal. It's the political cowards. When it comes to gas, our purchasing power just got cut in half. I sit back and laugh, open my bag, fill it with stacks and sats. Bitcoin, pumping, altcoins, pumping. I've been preparing for this. Can't tell me nothing.
And I believe crypto will play that type of role as a flight to quality. We are hearing from clients around the world.
Bitcoin, pump, altcoins, pump. I've been preparing for this.
And I believe crypto will play that type of role as
Bitcoin, pump, altcoin, pump.
we are hearing from clients around the world.
Can't nobody tell me nothing.
Crypto, depending on how you think about it. And I believe crypto will play that type of role as a
Can't nobody
flight to
tell me
quality.
nothing. Bitcoin, pump.
We are hearing from clients around the world.
Prepared for this.
Is it time? 100K, does it matter? At the end of the day, we got to look at these things on a moment-by-moment basis, especially right now. Do not mess this up. So with that being said, everybody make sure, head over to the @KellyKellam or @Academy BitLab or @Matthew Hyland _. Get this live stream retweeted. Let people know what's going on. We got some of the best analysts in the house. We got a little bit different views on what's going on, different ways we're looking at it. But with that, let's get into it. I don't even know what day it is. It's Bitcoin Day. Let's go. On. We got some of the best people in the space that are going to be popping in here momentarily. But I need to let me get all this stuff set because when I set up at home, there we go. Boom. Markets, this is what we're asking. Are we going to get up there? Is this going to be one more trap before it breaks down? Or do we have the juice to get this actually pushing up? And so with that being said, let's just dive on into it because we got our main guy here right now. This is not Crypto Danks. I did an express setup here when I got home, and as you can tell, my camera's not even on, but that's all good. Mr. Matthew Hyland, how you doing?
What is up, everyone? What is
ahead.
up, everyone? We gotta get these charts up here now.
Boom. I just, you pressed me. You said, let's go live. And I'm like, I just came home. It's a whole different studio setup. So I have to switch everything up. So here's the charts. What's going on? What are you seeing? What are you feeling?
Well, Bitcoin is trying right now to push up to that $100,000 level today. If we look at this, this is on the daily time frame. This is almost about to be, the daily candle closes in about 11 minutes. So this is about to be the highest daily candle close that we have ever seen. Potentially, if it can close above approximately 98,950, it looks like. So this would be the highest daily candle close ever we're about to witness. We'll see if that ends up happening, but Bitcoin essentially has been consolidating for the last 2 weeks or so, essentially, really since this part of November. It's been kind of just going a little bit more sideways, even though it's up a lot since that time frame. But Bitcoin, this to me, it looks like some sort of pennant formation that we've been consolidating in, and we're trying to break out of this right now. And usually when you're in an uptrend, and I always say this repeatedly over and over and over, it gets boring, but it's the most likeliest outcome is a continuation of an uptrend. So whenever you see any sort of consolidation, even on the macro scale, if we go on the weekly time frame, this whole consolidation, what did this end up leading to? A continuation of the uptrend. So we've been in a well-established uptrend for essentially 2 years now, essentially really since November, December, way back here. This is when the uptrend began. It was confirmed when we started making higher highs and higher lows, and then we've just been moving up now for the past 2 years. And it is set up, in my opinion, for a really good 2025. I think this whole stage is essentially set. If you look at the altcoin market, look at others, for example, which is alt outside the top 10. I'm going to just clean this up a little bit. We are now making higher highs above the highs from earlier in the year for others. So the altcoin market is really telling you that this is essentially going to push up to this high up here. This wants to go to new all-time highs. This is set up. And really, if you look at this, right, if we use the Fibonacci tool to see where this could potentially be going from here. If we go back to last cycle, let me put this up and take it from the top to the bottom. We went above the 3.618 Fibonacci target. So if we were to apply that here, let's say we only reached the 3.618, we're currently at around 414 billion. The 3.618 would would be at 1.59 trillion. So that would be almost a 4x. I didn't realize Kevin was here. So yeah, this would be almost a 4x, and that wouldn't even be as aggressive as where we went last time. We went above this, right? We went up this to about, I don't even know how much higher, about almost 50% higher than this. So even this would be a 4x from here. And another chart I've been discussing is this others dominance chart, and I think this has been super interesting. I did post about this a few times over the past few months, and you basically see similar structure over the last 3 cycles, where you first make the low of the cycle, and then you get the initial pump up, and then make that second low. And the second low occurred in December of 2016, December of 2020, and now November of 2024, essentially, right? And when you break out right here, when this breakout had occurred, we saw 16 weeks of upside afterwards in both times. If you go back to 2020 as well, broke out right here, 16 weeks of upside. So if we just broke out in this past weekly candle, we're probably looking at multiple months of upside for the altcoin market. So this is just the start. And essentially others dominance is others alts outside the top 10 dominance. So that means that the lower cap and mid cap altcoins are going to outperform the larger caps, which include Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, BNB, even XRP. So even though XRP has gone up a lot of these lower cap altcoins are probably going to outperform even what XRP has done. So we are just at the start, in my opinion, of a major run, as we're probably going to push to new highs above this high from back in 2021.
For sure. I want to bring it to the 3 guests here. Of course, I'm not important enough to get on the screen, so let me adjust since this is all on the fly today. There we go. Kevin, Svenson, everybody there with the Master Chief headset on. We got Matthew Hyland here with the good lighting because he is an angel. But we got the markets are here. This is what we've all been waiting on. We've been waiting on potentially when alt season is going to be here, when Bitcoin is going to get up to... And you called it perfectly, Mr. Matthew Hyland, here on BitLab Academy about, I don't know, 3 weeks ago, is waiting for Bitcoin to get up to not quite breaking 100K, but consolidating right under it. And that's when we're going to start seeing alts run. That's what happened. And then we saw $100 billion flow into XRP. And rather than ETH kicking off this capital flow series into alts, XRP did, and now we're seeing it flow. So thank you guys for being here. Everybody that's tuned in right now, this is an impromptu night stream. I don't want to say we're trying to catch the 100K breakthrough. It doesn't matter. We're going to trade it one way or another. We just want to bring that alpha to you. We're friends, all 3 of us, and all of you are here in our family. So thank you for being here. Everybody that's watching, hit that retweet there on Twitter. We got the live stream going between Kevin, me, Matthew. So I'm going to throw it now over to Kevin. Hey man, is this time different?
Is this time different from what you mean past cycles?
Yeah, is this different? Is the XRP kicking this off different, or is it kind of to be expected now that this big pressure cooker has been changed in how things are working here? Or how are you looking at this now, or is it one day at a time?
I mean, it is a little bit one day at a time. Every cycle is a little bit different than other cycles, obviously. I've been looking at Ethereum here because right now it's at a very, very key zone. I mean, this is like the resistance for Ethereum, and it's exciting to see this because Ethereum is kind of it's still the king of alts, right? If you go to everyone sort of has their opinions on Ethereum, but if you go to DeFi Llama and you look at total value locked across all chains, Ethereum is still 56.7%, Tron almost 7, Solana almost 7, right? So Ethereum is still eclipsing everything else, right? And it's been sleeping, it's been hibernating, it's been pretty boring. That is true. But here we are sitting at the macro resistance, and everything else has started to cook. I mean, you got XRP, that was the big one recently. Solana obviously has been just continuing to perform well. You have Dogecoin, Cardano. I mean, what else? Avalanche is starting to break out. Chainlink the other day did really well. All of them, they're all starting to move. And, Ethereum is the last one here, the last one that hasn't really done what the others have done. And in my opinion, it's like, well, of course it will, it's going to, it's just when, right? When is it going to happen? Well, we're right next to the potential for a major, major pump. And I was showing this on Twitter earlier, God candle loading for Ethereum here. It's quite possible that you could see a pretty substantial weekly candle above that resistance. So that's one of the big things I'm looking for, and that is, of course, going to be very good for the altcoins in general. Certainly going to be good for, a lot of the lower caps. And, of course, when the price of Ethereum goes up, all that liquidity, I mean, it kind of raises the tide for all the other altcoins. And people have been wondering, like, why aren't my alts pumping? Some of the alts, right? Higher caps have been pumping, but people are wondering, why aren't some of their alt bags moving? Well, Ethereum, the liquidity, or sort of the pairings, they're very tied in with one another. And so when Ethereum rises, everything else starts to rise with it. And so, yeah, that's one of the bigger events I'm looking for right now.
Yeah, I mean, everything is such a tight powder keg right now because Jerome Powell made a remark that we've all known for a decade. And that just is like, all right, let's go. And you got a little pump up, 99.3 or something like that. And then, obviously we're still kind of hovering under it. But altcoins, it's been really, I don't even want to say surprising. It's been relieving to see. It really has. Oh, wrong screen there. Where are we at? It's been relieving to see the theory, that the thesis that Matthew, you've had, Kevin, you've had, I've had, but having a 7-month chop back and forth that was the entire size of the entire crypto market cap it had ever gotten up until 2020. We did it 7 times in 7 months, 8 times in 7 months. And now we've gotten that pressure cooker really pushing to the upside. We got the administration on the right side. We just got the new SEC person that will likely be the SEC, chair of the SEC, is also on the board of advisors for Securitize with BlackRock on their BIDL fund, which is part of that, which, think of Chainlink, think Ondo. There's so many different things here. To me, it's beyond being, and I don't hate on anybody if they're a Bitcoin maxi, but at this point, you can't be mad if somebody's looking at something like Ondo, which is going to be tokenizing U.S. treasuries and other real world assets. Chainlink, which integrates the entire crypto ecosystem as well as Web2, as well as Swift, as well as DTCC, as well as Sony. It's like there's so many opportunity right now, and we're all primed. So, Mr. Hyland, I see you got a chart primed up there. So let me find where this is, and I have got 47 different tabs up right here. So let me see where you are. 1 second. There we go. Nope. This one right here. Boom. Gotcha. There we go. Take it away, baby.
Hold up. Just give me 1 second. This is not working.
No, you will not get 1 second. You know what? I will.
All right, there we go.
I poured myself. I've had a long day the last several weeks. I think we all have. I think I did 6 streams yesterday, content for the private community, recording, and it's just like, this is the time to grind. So I'm going to pour myself an old fashioned, have some sips. Take us to school, Mr. Hyland.
All right, so for Ethereum, Kevin was just discussing Ethereum. So I had discussed this a few times over the past few weeks. You look at Ethereum, we go back to 2020, right? December 16th, 2020 was the day that Bitcoin broke all-time highs. So it took Ethereum approximately 48 days, give or take. There was a wick above right here. So this was the all-time high from back in 2017 or 2018. It took about 48 days for it to finally have a daily candle close above it. So if we were to apply that here, right? Bitcoin broke all-time highs on November 5th. So if we go back to November 5th, that was, I believe, right here. So we take this out 48 days. That will put us right on December 23rd. So we're close in my opinion. I think, and if you look at this timeline, right, the trajectory of how ETH has been moving up since Bitcoin broke all-time highs, if you just take a trend line like this and just kind of follow this, where does it put us? Puts us right there, right around that time range. So I think Ethereum is on track to break the all-time high within the next month or so, if not sooner. I think it's going to happen. Ethereum is essentially the one thing that is lagging right now, because even if you look at others, like Ethereum is still below the high from earlier in this year, while others is above it now at this point. And if you look at Total 3, Total 3 is also above it, well above it at this point. Total 2, well above it. So it's really just Ethereum that the market is waiting on. But Ethereum always seems to be the last one to move. But once when it does, it really sets a lot of things off. So yeah, I think the whole crypto market is really it's set up really well right here for January, February, and March to be very, very exciting. I don't know what happens after that. I think there is like reason to believe that around the April timeframe, this might put in some sort of temporary top. But I think for now, we're definitely looking at multiple months of probably upside for the whole market. So this is really like the best possible time you could be in crypto out of any 4-year period. It's really just around this time. So things are about to get interesting. There's so much momentum.
I think it was last week when all 3 of us were on the first group stream we did together, and I can't remember which one of you, it was probably both of you in your own words. There's such a short window over every 4-year period that makes 90% of the gains. And we're if we haven't already knocked on that door, we at least have half a foot through the door, and we're going to be through that door very quickly. And if you're still wondering, is it going to dip? Who gives a shit what it's going to do in the next week or two? It could just leave you behind, or it might dip. Right now if you're going to buy, have conviction, or don't buy, and call us at the top and say, should I buy now? And I'll laugh in your face, because we've been talking about this for 2 fucking years, and it's time to make some decisions. And some of those decisions are just to sit on your hands sometimes. So we're getting spicy tonight, everybody. So this is not a kid's stream, so I apologize for the language, but I don't. Let's get real. This is our future we're talking about. So get back in here, Kevin. I see you got a chart primed up also.
Yeah, this is the Total 3 chart. This is kind of showing a little bit of what we were just talking about, how if you look at the past cycle, you look at, after the last election, it was pretty much the same exact setup. We break the lower high for the Total 3. And this move, I mean, it's about 20 weeks. You have about 20 weeks to make most of the gains that you want to make in this market. 20 weeks is where the majority happens. And then you have a major sort of like what I call an all is lost moment. A lot of times the market will run up and have that initial rise that's very swift. It's mostly green weeklies with a couple red ones in between. And it's, going from, what is that? What is this month here? That's, whoops, can't even see it. October. It's basically the same time frame. Last cycle was around January, although we did it here in November going to December. From January all the way to May, and then you have a 60% drawdown, at least I think it was in Ethereum, it was 60%. Here, Total 3. Also, the market cap of all the altcoins also is 60% drawdown in the midst of the run. And so there is a point where what I kind of call it the all is lost moment. And a lot of people, when they look at these charts, they always just tell themselves like, oh yeah, like I would have held that. I wouldn't have been scared here. But, just imagine your portfolio going down by 60%, on this move, and then rebounding up to go to an even higher high. Those are the types of moves that a lot of people it's very difficult for people to stomach those moves. So that's something that I think a lot of people are not ready for. A lot of people think that bull markets are just these straight lines up, and they're really not. They are pretty violent sometimes. I mean, there is a very comfortable start usually, but then once you start to see those major pullbacks, things get a little uncomfortable. Even though you're rebounding back up to the highs, it is a signal that things are getting overheated. And I do have an indicator to show when things are overheated called the altcoins versus Bitcoin heat map. And this is basically the total 3 versus Bitcoin pair. That's more or less what it actually is, but it's showing you a little bit of a heat map as to where the market is overheated. And basically that is when the total 3 is equal to Bitcoin's market cap. When the total 3 is 1-to-1 equal to Bitcoin, that is usually when the market is overheated. Right?
And Kev, just real quick, because I forget this. I think we all forget this. We're about to, in the next month and consecutively for the next 6 to 8 months, we're going to have this huge flood of new people coming in. There's going to be more new people in the space in 6 months than have ever been in the space. So what is the total 3? Why does it matter?
The total 3 is the altcoin market cap, the market cap of all assets excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum. So it doesn't include Ethereum, it doesn't include Bitcoin. And this is, the total right now. It actually just crossed 1 trillion. So everything but Bitcoin and Ethereum has crossed 1 trillion. And it is a very important, it's sort of whenever the total 3 gets to that point of being equal to Bitcoin, that's basically what this is showing, 1-to-1. It shows that things are just overvalued, right? And so when things are just overvalued, I mean, it doesn't really make sense that all of the other coins other than Bitcoin and Ethereum would be the same like value as Bitcoin in a way. I guess that's how you can look at it. And so whenever that happens, it's just screaming we're overbought. And this happened in 2017 as well. There's that data point over there. And we get there pretty quickly. It's sort of that swift 6-month move up, right? Swift move up for many months. And then you get to that point, and you go to a higher high. But here's the thing, guys. This is what a lot of people don't think about. People get fixated on like the all-time high, or selling the absolute top, which is a fool's errand. If you basically just kind of were in the market from here to there, that first top before that big 60% pullback, well, that's basically all you needed, because from that high to the actual all-time high of the last cycle for the total 3, there was a 15% difference. Does it really matter if you held a 60% drawdown, this huge pump just to get the extra 15%? Well, for individual altcoin projects, that second bounce may have been the biggest bounce. Sure, individual coins, they may rip way higher than they were at this high. But generally speaking, it's like you have this first move up, 6 months or whatever, huge drawdown. If you just sold that first top and then you walked away and you avoided all this nonsense, this is just like nonsense price action, and then bear market. This area right here is meant for all the latecomers that are just buying late, and it's nonsense, right? Yes, there are higher highs, there are major climaxes in a lot of individual projects that can take place here, but the meat of the move is here, not that top. So the meat of the move is actually taking place right now, and it'll probably carry us into March, April 2025 or something like that. March, April, May. And then you get that all is lost moment where your altcoin portfolio drops 70% down. All is lost. Oh no, it's over. Only for the climax to return, you sort of climax into the end, but the all is lost moment is a very common thing in markets right before the climax.
Hey, we're all here to climax. So let's make sure we can be there together as a group, as buddies, pulling in those profits and making sure that that we can tie this together. I mean, we're in this not just to see dollars on a screen. We're in this to see, not take screenshots and have it round trip back down. We've all done it on at least one project. Most of us on many projects through various parts of different cycles. We're here to make some money so we can affect how we are living our life, so we're not a slave to the system, so we can affect our families. So that's what we're here for. So let's throw it back over to Matthew, Mr. Hyland. I love this back and forth. I love doing this with you guys. It's so great. And again, shout out to everybody that's tuned in. Some of you might be new here. This is BitLab Academy. Kevin Svenson here. We got Matthew Hyland. All three of us are, we've known each other online for a long time. We got perfect matches on Grindr. We decided to link up at one of the crypto conferences and talk about pulling some bullish divs and yanking on some Fibonacci's. And we became buddies, and we're trying to just bring different views of the market together. So Hyland, what you looking at? And I think we'll get into some altcoins in a little bit. So if anybody has some thoughts on those in terms of the audience, let us know. If there's something that piques our interest, we'll try to decipher it for you.
So I'm looking at Bitcoin dominance, and this obviously looks like it's starting to break down. So it will be interesting to see what happens when Bitcoin actually gets through 100,000. If we start to see a bounce, it would actually be beneficial for pretty much everything. And we do see a bounce because we've already dropped from a high of around 61% down to currently around 55, 56. I think personally that the dominance will probably come down to this 42, 44 range. And there's reasons to believe that. First off, there's obviously that trend line. That's just support, but there's also the fib targets. You take it from this cycle bottom to this cycle, or the last cycle high, and it eventually retraced below the 0.786. So if we were to apply that once again to this cycle, from high to low or low to high, the 0.786 is around 44%. So last time it went slightly below it. So this area right here would make sense for Bitcoin dominance. So we still have a long way to go, in my opinion. So I think this cycle is definitely going to be interesting. But history, if I can find the right chart for Bitcoin, I've gone over this a few times. 2 of the 3 cycles, right, that we've experienced have essentially had similar characteristics. And in the very first cycle, we had this first high. This was way back in April of 2013, before pulling back all the way until July, before putting a top in November. And this is what also happened back in the last cycle. So this cycle too had that moment that Kevin was referring to, where everything probably felt lost. Bitcoin dropped from $260 down to around $70. So that's probably around almost 70% as well. So a very significant correction before then putting in the actual top. But the data shows us that 2 of 3 cycles we've topped in April. So I would say definitely be mentally prepared that we might top in April. A lot of people are probably going to get extremely bullish if we do start to push a lot higher. I've already seen a lot of calls for multi-million-dollar Bitcoin. I think eventually it will happen, but stuff like that is definitely a red flag. So it would just be very hard, in my opinion, for Bitcoin to continue to run straight up for another year straight, all the way until November of next year, without any sort of significant pullback. I do think there will be some sort of significant pullback at some point next year, probably in the same range that we've been seeing, especially over the past few years as well. You go back to 2021. Let me try to get this line out. If you go back to 2021, we've seen the same thing over and over. TradingView doesn't like me today. This was April of 2021. We essentially topped right here, then rolled over into the summer. April 2022, topped right there, rolled over for the rest of the year, essentially. April of 2023, if I put this on the weekly time frame, it'll be more clear. Topped right here, right at the start of April. Or let me go back to April of 2022. So this is April of 2022, topped here, rolled over into June. April of 2023, topped here in April. This was last year, or this year actually, April 2024 I'm referring to. So earlier this year, topped in April, rolled over all the way until August. So 4 straight years we've topped in April. 2 out of 3 cycles we've topped in April. This is on track, and Kelly, we've been discussing this for months and months and months, right? We kept throwing back to the election stuff all through the summer. I kept saying, just be patient, just wait until the election time. After that passes, probably going to start the upside. Now we're seeing that. So this is kind of like the next thing that I'm looking for is that we're going to probably, in my opinion, run for multiple months, right? Like I alluded to earlier, probably 2, 3, 4 months of upside before looking for some sort of temporary top. Now, there is obviously a chance that this plays out similar to 2017, where this just keeps going up throughout the year. But it would just be, in my opinion, very hard to sustain, especially because we started this a lot earlier. So back here, we didn't break the all-time high for officially until about April, actually, of 2017. And then we went up all the way until December of 2017. But this time around, we're breaking this way earlier, similar to last cycle. So to go up for a year straight would just be, I think, incredibly difficult for the market to do something.
Well, you know,
like that.
on that note, one of all of our friends, we all know this gentleman as well, awesome analyst, On-Chain College, posted this earlier today. I shared it on the live stream this morning for BitLab. During every basically to simplify this, during all bull runs, once we get in this area where most things are being held in profit without actually taking profit, you bought it at some point, you're holding it in your wallet, it's in profit. Once you get into this, once it gets up to this metric of the number of wallets out there or coins held that are unrealized profits, you tend to have anywhere from 3 to 6 months. And that actually lines up perfectly within what you're just talking about. And what I want everybody to realize is when we're talking about a potential top in April, that doesn't mean it's going, let's say it tops at 120. Well, let's say it tops at 200 in April. I would not, and I don't think Matthew Hyland thinks like this either. I don't think that would be the top of this cycle. It just suggests that there's probably could be a pretty substantial pullback that will wreck a lot of people, and they'll wait until the price action comes back up. We saw it back here. This was a 2013 run where you had this early top, sell-off, consolidation. People bought this and got to run this up again. Other people, bought here, sold here, and then wonder why it was a scam. No, our strategies typically are the scam. Bitcoin is not a scam. Most crypto in the top 100 or 200 are not. There are going to be ones out there that rug, but we're going into that position right now where the market strength, the pathway forward, the scheduled buying, the Microsoft having the shareholder meeting, Amazon's not in, Apple's not in yet, Meta's not in yet, Nvidia's not in yet. Most of the what is it called? The top 100, the top 100, top 200 corporations are not involved yet. FASB rules, fair value accounting is going live in a week or two. The pathway is just starting. So having a top before summer that might pull back and give us another opportunity to stack up before this rolls away. I'm not sure that after this cycle, after, let's say through 2025, I don't think after this we'll ever have this large volatility swing, maybe for 5 years, 10 years or more, maybe even beyond that, because of how much scheduled awareness, but also the buying pressure that's coming in from all these new capital channels. And in fact, the last thing I'll say about that before we throw it back over to, I think your chart next, Kevin, is we just saw one of the starts of the next liquidity wave with Korea today announcing that they're basically going to be floating unlimited new liquidity to support the market for an indefinite future. Soon we're going to see People's Bank of China, which they've already kind of alluded to it. Soon we're going to see the U.S. have to print again. We cannot service the debt that we have. And although it's bad for inflation, if we have investments in any equities, commodities, or Bitcoin and crypto market, you get to capture that inflation as a mechanism of growth rather than it just depreciating everything in your life.
Yeah, what you just mentioned, this chart from On-Chain College, this is a great chart that I actually haven't seen before. And you're saying that it's basically, say it one more time.
Roughly, once we get up into the blue zone where that area flips into blue, that is passing a certain metric that once we get up into this sort of, you can see it on the bottom where it says euphoria or greed. There's two different mechanisms here. It could be euphoria because we're pushing up, but it could also mean that you're in that greed stage and you're about to collapse. But it tends to be 3 to 6 months, and we're just entering it.
Like people not selling is essentially what you're saying.
Well, we're going into the euphoria stage now, right? So we're pushing up into that. So in the bull market, it would be euphoria. Once you get to the point where the buying pressure isn't actually to sustain any longer with not just short-term retail that's exit liquidity, then it just becomes people FOMO buying, which is greed, because you don't have the substantiated non-volatility people in the market because they've all offloaded to the retail hype buyers. Long-term holders buy low. They sell into the strength of the trend. Retail buys high, and they wonder why they always lose, because you're buying emotionally, you're not buying the fear and the.
Wait, did my mic did something just cut out?
No, yeah, something happened. I don't even know.
I think that was probably on Kelly's side, but yeah, you said something interesting though, and you were saying like people kind of just holding, their positions and not taking profit at these blue zones, and there's something to be said. It's like a lot of people wonder like, why is everyone always bullish at the top? And that's because everybody is fully invested at the top. That's how the price got there. And so when everybody's fully invested, there is a cap on how much growth you can get in the market at that point. So when the crowd is most bullish and you're in this euphoria phase and everybody is saying buy the dip, that is a pretty clear signal that things are overheated, that everybody is fully invested. When there's the least skepticism and the most bullishness, everybody is fully invested. And that is, where things top out. And so what we saw for Bitcoin for a while at the 69K level, or, this whole descending broadening wedge formation, people were, generally skeptical for a long time because Bitcoin, every time it bounced, it would pull back a little bit, it would bounce, it would pull back. And people were getting really sick and tired of this, even though Bitcoin was sitting right at the all-time high, right at the previous all-time high. It was right there. And people were skeptical, which means, and that skepticism tells me that people were not fully invested. They weren't fully invested. The crowd was not fully invested here at the previous all-time high. And that's a great sign, right? That's a good sign for the cycle right now that people are not fully invested. It means that there is a lot of room to grow. People are becoming more and more bullish as we start to break out upward, obviously, right? But people were not fully invested just a couple months ago. All that skepticism, I mean, even somebody watching this right now might be like, yeah, I was pretty skeptical even right here. And that's the thing, right? So when people are skeptical, they're not confident enough to be fully invested. And the market tops out when people are fully invested. And when people are fully invested, they have to speak as bullish as possible.
On that note, Kevin, I forget who posted it. Somebody posted, one of the many great different analysts on this on Twitter said about what happened with Bitcoin once we got to 40 or 50 the first time, how much euphoria, like not a few euphoria, excitement was there. And then when we broke above 74, how much excitement was there. And Ethereum, I know you guys were talking a little bit about Ethereum earlier, but it's interesting now. There's so much focus on all these other alts and stuff because XRP kind of stole the show. XLM blew up. Ondo now is, performing incredibly. Aerodrome, Near Protocol, Tau. There's a lot of scattered interest, I think, right now. And some people, I think there's a lot of people counting out Ethereum right now because the price is actually performing, it's up 50, 60% in the matter of a very short period of time. And nobody except for OG analysts are even mentioning it. People are like, no, it's too slow. I'm like, you wait in 6 months when it's $11,000 and you're like, how did that happen? Because it's the largest crypto ecosystem out there other than Bitcoin. I mean, in terms of the ecosystem, it's probably larger. In terms of the money, obviously, it's Bitcoin.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys can see my screen, right? I have this God candle loading. This is actually like almost like what my analysis is right now for Ethereum. Is like it's the only top coin that hasn't run yet, and when it does start to run, it's going to be most likely a pretty big run, a huge weekly print above that resistance, in my opinion, is coming. And the first part of that breakout could be simply to the previous all-time high, test that, retrace down or something along those lines, right? Like punch up, retrace back down. Well, let me get this out of the way real quick. The imagery. Breakout, hit the all-time high, a week or two, whatever. I mean, it could actually be that fast, and then consolidate and actually start to break out up into some of your upper fib levels. So if you go from high to low, your upper fibs, the first fib target on log scale is the 1272 at 7,750 more or less. And so that's a pretty substantial target there for being the first major fib target on the macro scale, right? So that is, it's going to be a big breakout. That's what I think. Now, if you go to linear scale, 5,952 is the first major fib target. It's either one. I mean, whether it's the linear scale 1272 or the log scale 1272, I mean, that's quite a bit of gains. Even just going to the linear scale 1272 is what, 55% up for a large cap coin, to get there. I mean, that's a good opportunity, right? And ultimately, I do think that Ethereum at the minimum is going to top out around the 1618 this cycle. That's the minimum target that I have. I do think that prices like, over 10,000 are possible. I mean, the very maximum, right? Maximum, because sometimes I say these predictions and people will, get like, will be upset about the numbers I'm throwing out there. The maximum, right, is about 15,000. I could see 7,500, 11,500, or 15,000, right? I mean, the lower the target, the more likely it is to hit. So if you're wondering, well, where should I sell? Well, if you want to be safe, sell at the lower target, right? Oftentimes, it's actually better to find reasons on why you should lower your targets instead of finding reasons to raise your targets. That's through experience. That's what I've learned. A lot of people, as they get excited for things, they start raising their targets, and we know how that goes, right? So find reasons to lower your targets, just a piece of wisdom, rather than raise them. Because, if you're going to use the first fib target, it's more likely to hit than the second one, right? Just pure logic there. But anyway, I just went off on a tangent. Ethereum is set for big moves here. I have no doubt about that. So I forget exactly what the question was before this. I'm not sure if I'm going off track.
The question was, what's the exact dollar and cents price target for Dash at the top of this site? No, I'm just joking. But you know what? We've been talking Bitcoin. We've been talking a little bit of the clear pathway forward. We're near 100,000. It's,
where is Dash?
I've mentioned this. Even if we had a large pullback, and I don't think this is going to happen, even if we had a large pullback to like 77, cleared the CME gap, there's so many people that would think that the cycle top was in. And I think that's an asinine assumption, because a pullback on Bitcoin to $77,000 would essentially just be the price action coming back, clearing out the CME gap that's below us down there, and also essentially retesting that previous range high. The bullish structure would be 100% entirely intact. But where we're at also, everybody here, if you have altcoins, if you have more altcoins and a dollar amount in your portfolio than Bitcoin, throw a 1 in the chat. Shout out to the dude here, said Dash $800. I see you. Just so everybody knows, you see that little X there? When you guys are typing in that chat on X, we see it too. So get involved. Let's all talk together. We're doing this together. But let's go through some different altcoins. There's been some questions. We'll do one each.
Well, I saw Ondo, one of your favorite picks, Ondo. That was, and actually I added that to the portfolio after you told me about it after the Bitcoin conference when we hung out. I actually ended up getting into it. So right now, so far, so good. I mean, it pumped pretty substantially. Just figured I'd mention that.
Yeah, and did you catch what I said earlier? Paul Atkins is on the board of Securitize, which is part of the BitLab Foundation, which is BlackRock, which obviously Ondo is one of the larger RWA plays. It's the largest RWA play in their tokenized treasuries section of BitLab. And the new SEC chief is on the board of advisors for that, which is pretty incredible. And let me actually pull this up really quick because I just saw it earlier. Hold on one second. Let me find this one. It was the last tweet I put out, I believe. Is this right here? Check this out. Awesome news for Ondo. Ondo is set to source, stacked, holding, and riding the dragon. And this is a tweet from Ondo earlier this afternoon, about 5 p.m. The CFTC Global Markets Advisory Committee's recent recommendation to the commission brings tokenized U.S. Treasuries one step closer to revolutionizing the 300 trillion derivatives market. If the commission votes to make this recommendation policy, certain tokenized assets, of course, they're referring, obviously, they're probably likely in this list, certain tokenized assets will be eligible collateral for derivatives trading. This will usher in a new era for the use of tokenized U.S. Treasuries and MMFs as a more capital efficient class. So there's a lot. I mean, this is a newer token, but it's dubbed. It's almost knighted by BlackRock. Clearly, they're having meetings with the CFTC, with different important commissioners. The new SEC chief is on the board of advisors for BitL, which is one of the largest buyers of Ondo. So there's a lot going on there. So I'll throw it back to you to look at that chart. Give us what you're looking at. With such a limited chart, how could you even do a damn projection?
Right, it's a difficult thing to look at. I mean, any new coin. A lot of times people ask me to like look at certain charts for certain coins, and the coin is like very new and has like no history, and it's always a little difficult to analyze a chart like that. But this one has had a really good start, and I think the narrative of sort of onboarding traditional finance into the blockchain space is a underrated narrative, right? I think it's underrated. And so right now for Ondo, if you just go from high to low, if you want to look at your fibs, we are reaching the first fib. That's actually, I think that was a direct touch. Let me check. I haven't actually analyzed the chart very much yet. If I just put a line on the top, on that top wick, whoops, right
Can
here.
I teach you something real quick?
We hit
quick little Kelly lesson. Quick little Kelly lesson for all you professional analysts out there. You don't have to go over there and click on the damn toolbar. If you're on
I know
PC,
there's a shortcut.
Dude, if you're on Mac, it's Alt H. That's the horizontal. Option H. Option J is a horizontal ray. If you're on PC, I believe it's Control.
I'm just gonna piss you off and keep clicking the button on the left.
Drives me crazy.
Control.
You're in control. I'm a backseat driver.
But I mean, honestly, I just did it again. I should be using the shortcuts, but whatever. I don't know why, whatever. So the 1272 is $2. Ondo, it is a psychological level. So as the price got right near the 1272, which is a fib, also exactly $2 on the 1272, but it came short of it. Obviously, a lot of selling pressure, or some selling pressure as you get to a psychological target like that. But it looks pretty good. If you look at the long-term RSI, I mean, we have breached what seems like, kind of like an RSI resistance trend. Sort of, if you just draw that resistance, from this RSI high on the daily to the lower high, to the next lower high, to this lower high, well, we've had a clear break. So there is a major shift, you could say a macro shift happening here for Ondo on the daily, for the daily RSI structure, which looks pretty good. The MACD is signaling really, a lot of momentum, a lot of strength. Ondo the daily MACD didn't even get to the neutral zone, was able to bounce. The bulls were losing a little bit of momentum here, and we just bounced right back. Right now on the daily MACD, Ondo is pointed up. There's nothing suggesting that the bulls are losing momentum, despite currently that there's a rejection here. The MACD says that we are still pointed up, so that's good to see. Let's see what else. Let's go to the weekly. The weekly is also strong, weekly MACD. And the weekly RSI is entering the overbought zone. Now, a lot of people tend to think that an RSI being overbought is a bad sign, but a lot of times, guys, it is a signal that a trend is just starting. And we saw that for Bitcoin recently, that when the daily entered the overbought zone, the trend started. And usually for most bull markets, entering the overbought zone is actually the signal of the start of a trend. If you look at this zone, the daily RSI right here, February, right there. Let me just make this line a little bit bigger so you can see that. When the daily RSI entered overbought, Bitcoin started the run. So we enter overbought and we go from 45,000 to 74,000, pretty much sitting in the overbought zone for most of the run. And you go back in time here, we enter overbought, we start the run right here. You go back in time even more. When we were sitting at 17, we hit the overbought zone, you started the pump. It's the start a lot of times. In a trending market, overbought is not necessarily a bad sign. It can sometimes signal the beginning of moves. And so for Ondo, well, we kind of have started to see that. Now, I'm not saying that right now is an optimal entry necessarily. It is obviously pretty elevated, but you broke out the overbought zone. Maybe you come back to retest the overbought zone as support, and then you could look to get an entry previous all-time high as new support. Maybe that's your entry, and then the RSI could cool off, bounce again, and then you'll just stay in the overbought zone. So I always find that to be interesting, that the overbought zone is oftentimes in a trending market, keyword there, trending
Well,
market.
I think you just brought up something very important too. The RSI, the relative strength index, and the price action, they don't move one to one. So if you see the price action pulling back and the RSI is falling further and it goes down and touches that red line that he has there, and the RSI only accomplishes pulling back to the previous price range high, the strength, essentially think of it like a car that's about to drive up a mountain. It basically it's not turning around to go down the mountain. It's pulling off the road to put gas in the car. It's like, damn, now you have high octane fuel. Now you have so much more energy to move up the mountain because the price held while the RSI reset further down. You have more room to slingshot to go further up that mountain.
Yes, exactly. And so getting a little bit of a cool off here. I mean, obviously, ideally, you get this cool down as the price remains above the previous all-time high. And if that can happen, then that would signal a really good entry where, maybe the RSI comes back up and bounces. And by the time you get that bounce on the RSI, the price is actually sitting at a new all-time high. And then you might see a little bit of bearish divergence while the price is at a new high. And then that signals the next pullback, stuff like that. So yeah, you could wait for a little bit of a cool down in the RSI before getting entry, but it looks good. I mean, for a new coin, new projects, it's oftentimes very rare, especially, having begun, while Bitcoin was seeing, some level of bearishness, while we were creating the descending triangle. I mean, this has had a pretty good performance. It's retained a lot of gains. Like, it's had some growth and it's retaining the growth. And a lot of times with altcoins, that is sometimes just the best thing you can ask for, is it just sustaining price levels at the very least? A lot of times they don't do that. So if an altcoin has some history and it's at least the top holders aren't just dumping it to new lows. I mean, the bar is set pretty low in this market, but that's usually a good sign that it's just retaining value and that there's a pretty hard floor there. And so the chart overall looks good.
Yeah, and great question here from Vatican. He said, between Ondo and Near, which one could you bring more ROI with? I think that's a great question on any two different assets in the space, because the question sort of highlights the fact that there's no way to really know which narrative is going to take off, which one's going to get really dubbed by liquidity to push. That's why in my portfolio, I have got a shitload of Ondo and I've got a ton of Near, because if you think about it, it's like owning a ton of McDonald's and also owning several great steakhouses. They both are going to do different types of business. They're going to bring in a lot of money. They have entirely different mechanisms. They have entirely different protocols. They have entirely different communities, and they are addressing entirely different needs. But I want to throw it over to get Matthew back in here. So we're going to go back and forth here. This is fun as shit, guys. Matt, I'm just going to throw it at you. I'm your number one fan. What do you see on Near? What do you see on Near going into where we're at right now and potentially into this cycle?
I don't know much about it, but let me take a look at the chart to see how it's looking. Let's see. This is on the quarterly, so let me go down to daily. So this This actually looks similar to what you're looking at with Ondo. The only difference is it just hasn't broken through the all-time highs yet. So this is moving up. But this is good structure right here. This is what you'd want to see. At a bottom, you get this double bottom formation. And then you see a break of the neckline area, which was, I guess you could say right there, it broke the neckline. So a lot of these coins, especially the ones that are listed on exchanges, have structure like this. Some of them have broken through the bottoming base that they've experienced over the last few months. Some of them haven't yet, but look like they're going to. A lot of them, though, in general, do have this similar structure. And to try to predict which ones will do better or worse, it's really, really hard to predict, especially in crypto. Sometimes the market ultimately like just decides, like a narrative starts to pick up. Let's say there's more chatter about, let's say, Ondo on Twitter than near. That could be the difference maker between which one is going to perform better. And usually in these in crypto bull markets, you see kind of narrative shifts constantly. Like we've seen it over the last month. Just a month ago, to start the month, it was mainly just Bitcoin, and we saw a lot of people actually questioning whether alts were completely finished for a few days. This was after the election. Bitcoin was obviously taking over or moving up, while a lot of alts were actually still in the red and bleeding, kind of. We saw, and then we started to see the memes really push. We saw a bunch of memes push up to their all-time highs, and then since then, a lot of the memes haven't really done too much. A lot of the memes have just been kind of consolidating, like Pepe and Doge. They haven't done much, but then we started to see the older coins start to pick up over the past 2 weeks, and we saw a lot of the older coins pop. But if you think about it, it's kind of just going how normal cycles typically do. You see the largest thing move first. We're still waiting on Ethereum, obviously, but then as we move along, probably the best performers are the ones that actually haven't moved yet, the ones that are going to perform the best. So despite seeing the price action from coins like XRP or Cardano moving up a lot, I think the micro or middle lower cap ones are actually do even better than what XRP and Cardano have, because they require a lot less capital. And keep in mind too, seeing a lot of money flow into XRP and Cardano is beneficial, and whatever other alts, Doge, and whatnot, is beneficial for the whole space, because this means more liquidity is flowing in, and there's buyers on one end, but there's also sellers on the other. So there's people that have sat in XRP for multiple years, in Cardano for multiple years, that are now up a lot. They're up. Let's say you're in XRP and you sat for years and years. You're now at 5x, and let's say it keeps pushing. Some people probably are taking profits. I know people who held XRP that are starting to take profits, but let's say it keeps pushing up. They'll take their profits and then move down into other projects, other coins. So if your coin isn't pumping, or if you missed out, let's say, on like the dinosaur coins pumping because you kind of didn't believe, or you gave up on them or whatever through the years, you're still going to probably benefit from them pumping, because the liquidity that's pumping into them is going to drip down and find its way into other coins, and there's going to be a lot of liquidity for people to exit coins like XRP, because there's a lot of newer people now trying to buy it, if that makes sense. I've seen a lot of people, retail people, ask me now recently about XRP. So there's going to be new people entering XRP, while people who held XRP for a while are exiting through them, and then they can go into newer coins with smaller caps, stuff that hasn't pumped yet. A lot of the market has just been kind of seeking out stuff that hasn't pumped. If you've noticed over the past few weeks, one by one, things that aren't moving are just suddenly popping. So I think over the next month or so, it'll just continue. Most of the stuff is going to see a pump. And really, when you zoom out, I believe in a few months from now, a lot of this stuff will look kind of similar. If you check and watch this stuff day to day, every day there's something that's popping, and it's kind of like you wish you were holding it. You obviously can't hold everything, but when you see something popping, it kind of is a little bit of a distraction. But I think when you zoom out and we look back at this in a few months from now, I think generally most of these coins are going to look similar. You're just going to see large green monthly candles, and the day-to-day stuff, it didn't matter in the end. The monthly or even quarterly will look pretty much the same for most of these. All these will probably be up significantly. So it's just a matter of patience. It's a matter of waiting. And then if you're in something, you could always, consider taking profits at some point. But I think we're still pretty early. I think we're just at the beginning of this run that I think will last for multiple months. Um, but if we're gonna look at some charts, let's see, what have people asked for on the side. Let's see if I can find something. I
I've
see
got a
on
little favorites thing. I've been starring people's stuff. We had a couple super chats, so shout out to everybody out there. Falco said, "Should I buy now?" I think he was just jacking with us. He's a longtime friend of the channel. You know what? I've been buying all along the way, but I also have a conviction that if I'm buying now too, I don't care if it drops 20%. I would be adding to that position. But everybody has a different risk tolerance. BTC newbie just says super chat, just says $1.99. Thank you very much. Appreciate you very much. GD super chat $2. Bob fun on ICP. I don't know what that means. Got having, what's your price? Let's look at ICP. ICP is one of those things I think that even myself, I hated it initially because I was still mired in the connection with FTX, but that was an unfortunate connection. You know, they have one of the faster speeds and pretty strong network, and their protocol. After going to many different conferences and going and talking with their team and their developers, and they're really building some badass stuff. So you know, I'm pretty confident of their sort of mid to longer term legacy that could be built within this space. I don't think it's going to be something that's around for one cycle.
It does appear to be reversing here. And if you look at this chart, a lot of these charts look like this, but this looks like Ethereum. So it's kind of following, I think, what Ethereum is doing. So whenever Ethereum probably breaks all-time highs, this or breaks the highs from earlier in the year, this will probably do the same. It has a very similar structure where it had that breakdown and then consolidated below, reclaimed it, and in a sense moved up. I'm not sure for ICP. Obviously, when it launched around, I think it was actually $3,000. I guess it was 650 on Coinbase. I don't know if it'll ever get back there. I'm
Well,
not
that
sure.
that was the issue. That was what I was talking about. That was when there
Yeah,
was some very bizarre, overwhelming. I don't even call it scam, but improper sort of pump metrics that were pushed out by the Alameda and FTX crew. So that's almost like you want to ignore. You want to ignore that level. You want to kind of look at it in the last like 2.5 years, 2 years or so, and onward.
I want to see what the market cap was at that time. If we can go back to see if it was like a supply reason for it to drop that significantly. Let's look at the market cap. I guess the market cap started at, let's see, 53 billion.
That's what I'm talking about. That was the
I
issue because they were tied in with FTX and Alameda, and they forced this very high listing price and then shorted the living shit out of it. So it has nothing to do with the ICP as the team or the thing. So it's an improper sort of data metric to consider that initial all-time high launching price. It's in some ways, I don't want to say it's a data point we should ignore, but we have to look at it dubiously and just look at the last like year and a half.
Yeah, I remember
it,
when Polkadot came out, I was uninterested literally because it launched at the top 10. And like it did decent, but it's like when something is that high right at the start, it's like you kind of just kill the vibe. Like, you know?
I don't understand. I don't understand. I mean, I guess you could list, like, let's say you launch a coin, you could, I guess FTX can claim, they probably just claimed it was worth that much, right? And then people probably bought it and they were just using that mostly for just exit liquidity. And like you said, being able to short it. It's just mind blowing that something can launch at $50 billion market cap without any, you know, build up or just like any sort of development, like from the market side. Let me go back to the chart though. I would say regardless, let me go ICP. I would just use these fib targets. I don't know if it'll ever get back to 600. If it does, then if you're holding that, then that would be great for you. Obviously, if it does, the fib targets are around $30, $45 for the 2.618 and $61. Those all seem, I'd say, like reasonable, achievable. That's like a 4x from here to reach the highest one up here. Probably can hit even higher targets. So I think it's just following what Ethereum is doing. Another one that's doing that is also AVAX. We discussed AVAX as well. same structure, had this move up, had the breakdown like Ethereum did, got back above it, and now is pushing toward this high from earlier in the year. This is actually a little bit closer. There's more price history for AVAX, but the high was essentially around $150. So this is still a 3x to get to the all-time high, which definitely seems possible.
I'm gonna pause you really quick just until this so this doesn't continue on before I'll forget to bring this up. But this is exactly what I was talking about here. And there's a whole article about this that suggested that ICP's token price was manipulated to crash upon its launch, potentially to discredit the ICP and project. And part of the reason that was because FTX and Alameda had such a tight investment and partnership in some ways, but they had dubbed Solana as one of their main things. And so ICP, they're like, all right, they set it up to have this huge price that the second it launched, they shorted the on leverage. They open interest shorted the living shit out of it to sort of make it fail. So that's what I was discussing. And I think it's shaking that off because it had nothing to do with ICP being a project that was nefarious at all. It had more to do with FTX having bad practices. But let's get back to AVAX because AVAX is one of my favorite protocols looking into the next few years.
Yeah, I'd have to really they should make a documentary about ICP, the whole launch and stuff, because I know Coinbase launched it really soon after as well at that time, which is where the chart was, why it went down from the start. Regardless, though, AVAX looks similar to Ethereum. This still needs about a 3x. I'm going to show you an interesting chart, actually. This is AVAX USD against Solana USD. Oops. Or actually, let me do, AVAX USD, Solana USD. So if you're sitting in Solana right now and you looked at this chart objectively, this is really interesting. This is a double bottom breakout against Solana. So this would suggest, right, that AVAX is probably going to outperform Solana. And if you look at this price range, just to get back to even let's say this high, this would be 160% move against Solana to the upside just to get up there, and then just to get back to this other high, 360% move against Solana. So I've been discussing actually Solana for the past few months or so. I think Solana personally, right, and I people probably don't like to hear it, but I think Solana, if you look at Solana dominance, I think it's going to follow Bitcoin dominance. So Bitcoin dominance, it's been falling for a while. But if you look at this chart right here, this is Solana dominance. To me, this is starting to look like this is breaking down. This would really confirm it if it broke below this. So I think it's followed Bitcoin dominance all the way up. So I think if it's going to continue to follow Bitcoin dominance, it's going to follow Bitcoin dominance down as well. So I do think Solana will be one of the far weaker coins going forward. It's going to underperform probably most of the market, like Bitcoin as well. So
wait, can I ask, is the reasoning partially because it kind of so far outpaced most of the market so far? Do you think there's going to be some rotation out of it now, or okay?
It's mainly because it outpaced most of the market. It's followed Bitcoin dominance. Even if you look at the Solana Bitcoin chart, it looks exactly like the Ethereum Bitcoin chart. Let me see if I can find this. Sol BTC. Let me load this up. And I discussed this before in the past, right? I think this is going back to the summer. This is also sitting on support right now. But if you look at, let me see if I could put this up against the ETH BTC to make it more clear. And this isn't to say Solana is going to go down in USD price by any means. This essentially just means that Solana is going to underperform pretty much most of the market. And if you're a Solana holder, it's obviously done well. And I was one of the people actually discussing it way back when it was like sub 20 on my Twitter multiple times. I was talking about it when no one wanted to talk about it. So I don't really hate Solana by any means. But if you look at these two charts, right, this looks in my opinion, this looks nearly the same. Essentially here where Ethereum had this kind of similar type of consolidation and then eventually broke down. So Ethereum had to move up in its second cycle. This is Solana's second cycle. Solana had to move up in its second cycle. Only one coin ever, as far as I know, after 3 cycles or 2 cycles, has ever broken to new highs against Bitcoin, which was Doge. So I think the expectation for Solana to make a new high against Bitcoin it's not favorable, right? Ethereum didn't do it. No other coin has really ever done it. You usually see a coin have its first high against Bitcoin and then never get back to those highs afterwards. There might be a few outliers, but as far as I'm aware, it's really just Doge. I think FET might have done that over this past year or so, but it's not many. So I just don't think you look at this. I just think this is setting up, right? Solana sitting on support. Solana dominance is already breaking down. Solana, in terms of, in my opinion, I wrote this out months ago. In terms of just frothiness and people hyping it up and stuff, it really reached just complete max potential overall. So, and yeah, the ETF is probably coming, but I think a lot of that is probably priced in. And actually, I'd say BlackRock hasn't proposed it yet, so we're still waiting on BlackRock to propose it. But similar to like Ethereum, the Ethereum ETF, that didn't really initially, it hasn't helped it initially. So the Solana ETF, my bigger picture is I think there's a lot of other coins that are going to outperform Solana going forward. And I've been saying this for a while, right? So this isn't something new or anything. I've been saying it for months and months and months. It's not to crap on Solana by any means. It just is what it is. And same with
Well, I
Bitcoin.
mean, it's what
We
we
all
do
know.
as speculators, right? We
Yeah.
try to figure out where the interest is going. We battle with every individual asset. Where is the narrative shifting to momentum with bulls, to waning momentum with bulls, which means if bullish momentum is waning, that means bearish momentum is starting to pick up, and you're trying to capture those swings. And when now you do the same thing when you see the different interest shifting between assets. But as you're doing that, I see Kevin's been over here concocting a whole cacophony of charts and analytical displays that are going to blow our imagination. So what do you got pulled up here, buddy?
I was just looking at the USDT dominance chart against Bitcoin, and in the last cycle, and this is also an interesting chart to look at for the total three as well. Which it's actually almost more interesting with USDT dominance in Bitcoin. It's pretty straightforward. When it's pretty much an inverse correlation, more or less. USDT dominance coming down, Bitcoin's going up. When USDT dominance starts to flatten out and sort of just go sideways right here, Bitcoin is also kind of going sideways. And then when USDT dominance breaks out, Bitcoin dumps. And it's literally just this ping pong inverse correlation, sort of just continuous inverse correlation. But what's interesting is that if you look at the total three, bring up the total three and remove these drawings here, you can see that the USDT dominance, when it was sitting in that little sideways pocket where Bitcoin was also in the sideways pocket right here, or let me just, there's too many drawings. It's a little too confusing. Let me just get, something like this rectangle right here. Bitcoin was sort of going sideways in that sideways range for USDT dominance, which is what I'm highlighting here. But the altcoins in that zone were going to the moon. They were going pretty much vertical. And so as USDT dominance settles up, Bitcoin might also kind of settle up. But for the altcoins, it's one of the points where the biggest part of the run happens is when USDT dominance is kind of just hanging out, right? And so that's what I'm waiting for here. I'm waiting to see, where does USDT dominance bottom out and when does it start chopping sideways? Because that might be the signal that essentially one of the biggest parts of the run for the alts is likely coming. And that could also be right before the all is lost moment. The thing I was talking about before, which, this is a live stream. Some of you guys might not know what I mean by that, but every cycle, there's usually a big all is lost moment, this huge dump before the climax. And so the all is lost moment happens at the end of the USDT dominance consolidation. Then it goes to all is lost moment, 70% down for alts, right? After that consolidation's over. And then you get the epic bounce back.
Man, we're in for so much right now. It's not even crazy. I did see somebody on there, and I don't know why. That's one of the reasons why I love these live streams where you have different people asking different questions. And it's just because you only have so much capital. You could put so many places that you can keep focused on in your own portfolio. Now I cover all kind of stuff that I don't hold in my portfolio, but one of those that I honestly wish that I had stacked into many, many months ago is Aptos. So Kevin, would you do us the honor of breaking down some Aptos charts here?
Aptos. Just looking at some of the, I guess, which chart?
It
Which chart is
could
the
go
most
either
history?
direction. That's what that chart showed.
Up or down. Wait, no, this is USDT dominance. So is this so this is from 2023. I guess this is kind of just the history of the chart here. Interesting. Very interesting chart. I'll say that. Most charts do not look quite like this. The way that you just have that, coming right. I mean, some of them do, I guess, but not in the time frame that we're looking at it from 2023 to now. This is a very interesting. It looks like a like a W, but this is the weekly RSI. I mean, it's on an uptrend. That's you just mark up weekly RSI trend line, and sort of as long as you're maintaining a general weekly RSI uptrend line. I mean, it gets a little tricky to judge sometimes, but Aptos, I suppose, could still maintain an uptrend as long as it's maintaining weekly RSI structure before coming down. So there is room to re-enter the overbought zone, maybe pull back to meet the trend line, and then squeeze up into the overbought zone on the weekly before inevitably crashing like every other coin. But we're talking about, 6-8 months, right?
Yeah,
Doesn't look like much.
it's
A weekly
important to
chart,
note
though.
also. It's important to note also that if you look at it on a market cap basis, it did just break into a new all-time high on market cap. And for anybody that doesn't know how this could be possible, this is why it's important to understand the tokenomics, meaning how many tokens are in an asset, what's their schedule for release over time, when and where are their emissions, all those sorts of things. So although the price looks like it was trending sideways, as you saw on Kevin's chart, and it's almost like a giant mid macro cycle sideways channel. Now that could be bullish if a huge amount of liquidity comes in and it just starts moonshot. But in all honesty, looking at that makes it look like maybe it has a lot more work to do if it wants to follow along with the rest of the market. But we're gonna have to see how this flows.
And that's the weekly. The daily, obviously, different story. The day, I mean, it's pretty steady. Like, these are some pretty. I mean, it's a pretty big drawdown most of the time as well, but it's a nice steady growth. We've seen this from August low for Bitcoin, right? And it's just been maintaining its moves. Decent pullbacks, continuing to bounce, getting demand, higher lows, holding like a pretty nice. It's a little bit wacky to look at the RSI structure here, but holding a pretty nice RSI uptrend as well. The MACD right now is not giving all too much of a reading. There is divergence, I guess. You can say higher highs on price, lower highs on the MACD histogram, also lower
And
highs on the
RSI.
daily RSI, right? So you have bearish divergence there. This could pull back to some degree, just looking at the technicals without having some kind of bias towards it. In theory, if I didn't know what this coin was, if I didn't know it was crypto, it's a chart, I would say, well, it could come back to the trend line. I mean, why not? It would be like the previous resistance, new support, possibly along an RSI trend line being tested, right? And then maybe MACD gets into the negative zone and begins to curl over. But just looking at the chart without bias, I would say the downside target, it's more likely to come back to like 1080 or something along those lines. But it is a bull market. It could have a very swift recovery after that.
So let's kind of pivot here for a second. Stay on this, Kevin. XRP just obviously had, I don't want to call it a windfall. It was a multi-year sort of spring-loaded euphoria capital pour into it, but it had a pretty big move. How do you look at it? How do you look at the strength of a move on XRP and determine, is this going to keep going? Do I need to watch for a 786 retracement? Are you looking for a golden pocket retracement? Is it like, if you're looking at XRP, how could you even make a determination about what to do next? Because there's so much narrative focus around it right now as well, because that spring just got released.
Yeah,
I mean, look at that chart.
It's an interesting question because a lot of times, what?
I said, look at that chart. It's freaking ridiculous.
Yeah, a lot of times, XRP has, and this is the thing, XRP is currently at or still below the 2017 prices, which is just an interesting fact. It's
Its market
also
cap though broke above.
its market cap, yeah. But in terms of holders, the prices they're seeing, their value, I guess, it's had a nice pump. I would say, hodling this coin, not the greatest. Though, of course, if you are a hodler of XRP right now, you would be like, it's the best thing ever. But I don't know. I've never been a fan of XRP, to be quite honest, just because of the lack of growth. And so when I look at this chart, I'm like, okay, this could go to a new all-time high, right? In theory, we're not that far along this bull cycle. Bitcoin likely has 100K plus, whatever target you want to throw out there. XRP could settle up in this range for longer than people would like. Maybe it could maybe bounce up to a slightly higher high, settle up here for a few months, and then have another random spike into that $5-6 range before then bleeding out again and sort of bleeding out back into this range that it's been in since 2017. And so it's, how do you analyze XRP? It's difficult, to be honest. It is difficult to say, but the nature of XRP, the way that it has always been behaving, is that it just bleeds out eventually. It kind of just bleeds out. And that's sort of like what Dogecoin does as well. A lot of top coins, it's difficult for them to sustain these high prices.
Whoa, wait. Is this something that we've never really acknowledged before? Did we just get some really weird, bizarre, accidental alpha? Is XRP something that parades as a blue chip that actually performs like a meme coin?
Yeah, I've actually described it like that before. Yeah.
Wow.
People XRP holders do not like that description, obviously.
So wait. So Kev, you did a post on your Twitter, on your X, and I'm actually curious about this. This will be telling. You did a post about a week. It was right when this pump happened. You didn't say anything negative. You said no opinion. All you did, you released. Actually, can you pull that tweet up? Can you find it? Because this tweet was phenomenal. I'll go to a multi-screen right now while you're looking for it. The tweet you released was just 4 or 5 just facts. And it wasn't saying good, bad, right, wrong. It's like, hey, here's some facts about XRP. And there was some people like, hey, thank you for sharing this. And there was just a ravenous, like, you're a fuck. It's like, bro.
Yeah, it's right here. I have it right here. I'm hearing, what I wrote was, I'm hearing lots of insane talk about XRP because people were talking about, whatever, $100, $1,000, 10,000, even 200. I saw $200,000 prediction for one XRP token. I was like, all right, this is crazy. So I just wrote facts. I said XRP is currently at December 2017 prices. It was at these prices in December 2017. XRP is down 90% against Bitcoin since 2017. And if XRP went to 100, it would be worth more than Bitcoin and Nvidia combined. And I said, not happening. That's the only thing that you could say is not a fact, because I wrote not happening. But I think if you just looked at the statistical likelihood that XRP would be worth more than Bitcoin and Nvidia combined, it's a pretty low likelihood.
Wait. So on that note, I commented below because as soon as I posted that, I saw this next thing, and somebody was suggesting that XRP could go to $10,000 to $30,000. Can you do the math real quick, Kevin? What would be the market cap of XRP? Let's go to the low side. Let's do 5,000.
Can you play that TikTok? Can you play that video
at $5,000 a coin?
Can you play that video?
Yeah. Let's see. Let me see if I let me see.
You don't have to play the whole thing. Or is there music in it? Maybe.
No, the audio doesn't pull over.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's just asinine. Like they're talking. Essentially, I can summarize it. What he's talking about is essentially the if there's different token lockups and there's utility, you know, like in terms of the use case, confirming transactions on some banking network, it could go to $10,000 to $30,000 a coin. But it's like, okay, well, look at Chainlink. Chainlink's already being utilized by DTCC, which does $2 quadrillion in processing a year. Then you have Swift that it's also going to be on. Then you have, I mean, almost every major bank. Then you have
people are not.
I mean, the list
people
is endless with
not
Chainlink,
doing the
and
math.
I'm bullish on Chainlink. It's not going to go to 10,000. If it goes to 1,000, I would be like, this is ridiculous.
But the sad part is there's going to be a lot of people, a lot of like retail people that will think it's going to go to like absurd prices, like 100 or 200 or 500 or 10,000. And it'll get to maybe it gets to $5 or $10, but they won't sell. They won't sell a thing because they think if this coin goes to $1,000, I'm going to be, you know, set for life. And
that's like, yeah, dude, that's like somebody saying,
wait, so you said 10,000 was
that's like saying
the
if I hold my
calculation?
Shiba Inu to a penny, I'm going to be so rich. I'm like, do you realize the market cap at a penny?
Yep.
It's trillions.
I heard people told me that in 2021 too. They're like, oh yeah, if Shiba Inu gets to a penny, I'm going to be retired. I'm going to have like all this and this and this. Doge got there. And I'm like, it's not like, look at they don't know the market cap. They don't know, you know, quantity or the amount of coins, any of that, just the price. And
it's kind of, it's just, I don't know. The bull market blinds people. It makes them want to just believe the most insane things possible. If you multiply 57 billion, which is what the current circulating supply of XRP, 57 billion, and then you times it by 10,000. What is that? That is $570 trillion. that would pay for like all global debt, and like it's just, guys, come on.
The global derivatives market's like 400 trillion. So it's just like it literally, as Bad Fox said there, I posted it on screen a second ago. I said, I'm dying. Kevin's head shakes. The math isn't mathing. Now there's hopium and there's just, hey, check me into a clinic because I got no freaking idea what I'm talking about. And that's why, yes, there's great information you can find on Twitter. There's great information you can find on YouTube. There's great information you can find on TikTok. But it's like if you drive back, like I like food, and there's probably, like when I lived in New York, there's probably some tens of thousands, if not 100,000 restaurants. Yeah, people talk about how good the food in New York is. Well, it's probably like 1 in 1,000 that it's actually like, this is great. Otherwise, it's shitty pizza. No, the pizza in New York's not the best. 1 in 100 pizza restaurants happens to have great pizza, but that's the same in every freaking city I've ever been in. Same with YouTubers. There's a lot of different opinions out there. You really got to sift through and figure out where there's content that actually has some substance behind it.
Yeah, so I forget what the last question. I think you asked me what is XRP's market cap at $10,000? It's 570 trillion, and also, you know, that's $570 trillion of potential selling pressure. It's a hell of a lot of selling pressure.
I think in all seriousness though, for XRP, if it can consolidate above that 2021 top around $2, let's say it can consolidate there for a few weeks or months, I think that will then propel it to the $4 all-time high. Maybe it breaks out through there. So really, that for XRP, you want to see it now hold above $2. That will be the more significant thing for XRP if you're an XRP bull.
Oh, for sure. But you know what? I want to bust out a chart here too. We're all sharing in the love. Somebody asked for DAG, and I've got it here somewhere. Give me 1 second right here. And DAG, I honestly, I think that DAG is a little bit of a, I think it's a little bit of a hidden gem still in the market. And here it is right here. Constellation DAG. This is let me delete this giant fib. Massive downtrend here. Oh my God, it's over, only to have a resurgence. And then just like almost everything in the market, but formed a bottom. This is where on my channel, I was telling everybody, hey, I think it's forming a bottom. And there's 3 reasons why I thought that. One, because we had this falling wedge. We ended up forming this W pattern, and also looking at the context of the altcoin market cycles and where we're in relationship to the 4-year cycle just on the general crypto market. So this made sense to me, especially when we started seeing strength come into the market with the momentum waves here, getting higher levels, bullish divergences here. But more so than that, This has such incredible partnerships with the Department of Defense, with the U.S. Air Force, U.S. Space Force, the U.S. Transcom. The list goes on and on and on. So I was saying, hey, we're stacking in here. And now this is probably on a percentage basis. This is probably my best performer in my altcoin portfolio. And this has only gotten back to this regional high of March of this year. We still have so much to go here. I honestly think this is going to be a pretty damn good, strong. See that quick key there, Kevin? I just used my keyboard. I didn't have to go back and forth. So there. The 382 on the macro is up to 18 cents. We're at 8 cents now. The golden pocket's 31 cents. If we get to previous all-time high, and this, remember, this is something important, context. This all-time high previously was before retail was involved. This is when they were like kind of silent stealth mode, just making and endeavoring into incredible contracts with the government that they were basically stress testing everything. And so I have confidence, at least in my portfolio, this is not financial advice, that the price action will at least reach this previous all-time high. If I had to guess, I think this will probably move up, and we can be conservative. Let's say the 1.618, that's 71 cents from the price point that it's at now. That is a move. Just there, that's a 9x or more to that level. This is something that I've been stacking into. I'm very confident on. But you know what, Mr. Matthew Hyland, I have I'm going to make an announcement after you do this next thing. But you talked me in because you know I used to walk dogs. You know that I love animals.
Oh, no.
You said, hey, dude, you got to look at this stupid, dumb shit ass meme coin. And I said, what is it? You said, actually, it's not stupid at all. It's a fair launch. It's no KOLs. There's no team token lockup. And it's a Bitcoin meme coin. And you got to tell us a little bit about what you see on that price action. And is it something worth people getting into? You know, I don't meme, but you got me in to walk this dog. So what are you thinking on this coin here? And I want to ask Kevin, are you familiar with dog on Bitcoin, dog on runes? Let's look at it and see what we got going on.
I'm familiar, but Matt is the master of this one. So
it's literally just the meme. It's the biggest meme coin on Bitcoin. But the bigger thing for me is like it was distributed evenly and fairly. So there was there's no insiders, no KOLs. It can't be rugged. It was given to everyone that owned an ordinal or two ordinals in 2023. So if you tested the Bitcoin ordinal stuff last year, you were airdropped a runestone ordinal, which then led to you getting the dog airdrop. But the bigger thing is for me is it's on Bitcoin, and Bitcoin has more liquidity than any other chain. So a lot of the other memes are on Ethereum and Solana. We saw last cycle Shiba get to 10% of Ethereum's market cap. So Ethereum's market cap was around, I believe, 500 billion, and Shiba Inu got to 50 billion. So if Dog even got to 1% of Bitcoin's current market cap, that would be approximately, I think, almost 20 billion, because Bitcoin's around 2 trillion now. So if it got to even 1%, that'd be a 20x from here. So for me, Dog, I think, is just the risk reward is there. It's on Bitcoin, has a huge following actually. And the chart, to me, if you just look at the chart, looks pretty good in my opinion. Has moved up, consolidating right now on this support from back in October when it made this high above it. So it's just kind of consolidating right now, right below the all-time highs. So Kelly, I talked about with Kelly, he liked it. So I think it's just an interesting thing for a meme project compared to all the other ones that have all sort of corruption and different things going on behind the scenes with people trying to pump it or dump it or inside stuff and whatnot. So that's pretty much what attracted me to Dog. And I was also airdropped it way back just from testing the ordinals, but it kind of built from there. So that's how I started following it.
Well, I mean, to take it one step further, when you consider the size of ecosystems, looking at the size of the Bitcoin ecosystem, this is available capital out there. This is how much Bitcoin is left. Now, are the meme coins and Bitcoin going to completely steal all of this? No. But when you consider the trust, when you consider the provenance of the Bitcoin ecosystem, it speaks a lot to, hey, we haven't had this other thing that we can play in here. And even people like I mean, top level people out there, Mark Yusko, Crypto Capital Venture, Dan Gambardello, Altcoin Daily, Leonidas, who's one of the original people in the ordinals. By the way, special announcement. And this is what I wanted to announce to everybody. I do have tomorrow, I've got Leonidas coming on to talk. We're going to do a live stream tomorrow at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time to talk about runes, to talk about the dog meme coin. And again, I am not a paid KOL. There's no paid KOLs. There's no sponsorship. There's no nothing. It's like, hey, this is free and fair. He's even talking exchanges into, rather than paying a listing fee to get this listed, hey, this is actually the only free and fair, super like amazing community out there. And there's starting to be exchanges. And I will say, I don't know if this is the case. I did take a look at this on CoinMarketCap, and this is driving some speculation here. If you look Dog Bitcoin, there is a little wallet that's been listed here on Binance. I'm not saying that Dog is going to be listed on Binance, but I do know that it's not listed there yet or on any other major tier 1 or even I don't even think a tier 2 exchange yet. So there's a lot to be said about where that could go. And so I thought it was fun. I did one post about it, got 30,000 views. Everybody retweeted it. I was like, this is a strong community. So you know what? I'm in it to win it. I'm here to have fun. I'm here to make money, but I'm not going to be so goddamn tribal like most people and even myself have been in the space. I'm allocated appropriately with blue chips, with smart mid-cut. But hey, let's also have some fun along the way. And if something like this can go, let's run. Now, with that being said, that's going to be a clip. We're going to share that shit because you watch the dog community is going to run wild with that. But Kevin, you're a pretty tried and true OG, Bitcoin, Ethereum. You dance in the alts. Break it down, twist our arms. You got to have something on there you don't want to share with the audience. You got to have something you're like, this is a little too risky. Give us that risky play that you're like, all right, you know what? This is a micro cap. And again, everybody watching, none of this is financial advice. This is what we're doing based on our risk tolerance. If you want to dance with us. But Kevin, share something with us. It's got to be under a $1 billion market cap. Don't give me like, this is risky.
That's not a micro cap.
What's that?
That's not a micro cap.
I meant to say market cap. Sorry, I've been having old fashions, man. Come on.
A micro cap nowadays is like a $1,000 market cap coin on that website.
Like, none of that nonsense.
There's like pump fun, like.
Yeah,
that's a good question. I don't know. Off the top of my head, what is a micro cap that is?
Well, again, it doesn't have to be a micro cap. Something you might only have $500 in it. Might have 200. What's something that you have that's in that under 500 million market cap, maybe 20 million, maybe 40, maybe 80. There's plenty out there. You got to have at least one. If not, we're gonna make you buy one live on air.
No, there's definitely some. I just don't know which one I would actually want to mention. You know what I mean? Because I'm always usually very careful about that. I don't really like to do that. So if I was going to shout one out, it's like, which one would I actually want to do? I don't, I was not prepared for this one. And it's risky. Like it has to be a risky one.
No, it doesn't have to be risky at all. I bet the nature of something under 500 million is there's risk involved because it's so small.
I mean, this is not even, okay, so this is not even, it's not even
being so damn
slow.
Hold on,
I got it.
You're being slow. I already got one. While you're being so damn slow, I've seen a couple people ask about this one, and it's this one right here. Moonwell on base. This is something I shared with my audience a little while back. And Moonwell, if we look at this, Moonwell, boom. This is let's see, it's 236 million. And now you could consider this risky, but it's also tied into the base ecosystem.
That's not even that small though.
Right, but it was before.
How degen do you want to go?
dude, let's go degen, baby. Hey, none of this is financial advice. Come on, give us that degen pick.
No, one that I consider not a degen pick is Renzo.
XRP.
XRP. Renzo. I mean, this is just an interesting project. Liquid staking on Ethereum. So I think when Ethereum breaks out, this is under 100 million. It's probably going to do really well. It hasn't had a great start. It launched pretty much right when the altcoin started to bleed out. But I think this one will probably be a decent performer at a low market cap. I'm going through my list here. I mean, there's just gaming tokens as well. I think there's certain gaming tokens that are big time. I think this one's going to do well overall.
How about a GPU?
Node AI GPU. I think we both have that one, don't we?
So my DGEM play, I don't call it DGEM, but my smaller market cap play for GPUs is Aether.
I actually got that after you told me about it.
The AI stuff, the AI stuff hasn't seen like a major push yet, so I think that's probably eventually going to come.
Yeah, I mean, Chain Swap. This would probably gain a lot of market cap by now, though. Chainlink token, or C Swap, I guess ticker. Well, actually,
damn, it looks like a good opportunity zone too.
Still very low market cap. Actually, I thought for some reason it would have been. Yeah, I mean, this is a good opportunity. The fully diluted is no different than the actual market cap right now. So, Chain Swap, probably a good one as well. What else? Ondo was, I would have said that recently, but now it's pumped. I mean, I still think it is, but it's pumped a lot. I actually mentioned that to somebody the other day, and they were like, well, they were like in meme coins, and they were thinking like, what could they buy that's not a meme coin that's at a good opportunity zone? I mentioned Ondo. I don't think they took the opportunity, and it was like the next day it exploded.
Well, have you looked at one of the ones I like is Proppy? Have you looked at Proppy? Proppy is Tim Draper's one of the pretty decently large investors in that. They actually also just recently, like under a month ago or a month-ish ago, partnered with Coinbase Prime to be the custodian. It's a real world asset tokenization play for real estate. Gary Cardone is starting to talk and work with them. Remember, his brother is a real estate magnate for real estate development. It'd be amazing if Grant got involved with it as well. But they accept Bitcoin, XRP, Ethereum, all for payment to basically be the mechanism for buying and selling real estate. But the fact that they're also in some ways partnering with Coinbase, I think is pretty, and this is pretty cool. This is roughly about, I think around $100 million market cap. So I think this has a potential to do very well. Again, none of this is financial advice. These are the different things and ideas that we're all just dancing with. That's why it's a very small allocation of my portfolio.
It's an old coin.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Wow. Super old. It looks like XRP's chart kind of, but different. You know which chart? You know which chart?
Don't talk shit about my coin, okay?
Oh. You know which chart actually looks like XRP's chart? Go to XMR Monero.
Yeah, similar. It looks. Yeah, I guess you're right.
But the issue for Monero is that the on ramps aren't there. It's not listed on Binance anymore. Coinbase doesn't have it. It's just hard to see it do something like what XRP just did, just because it's difficult to buy, unfortunately. Kelly, if you go over to my screen, I was gonna show you on my screen. Back in so a lot of people new to crypto probably don't remember this or don't even know about this, but this was back in November 18th, 2018. So for a few days, this is for the XRP people. XRP flipped Ethereum. People don't know that. So that could be a potential maybe target at some point, maybe for a few days. Like if you see XRP flipping Ethereum, that means it would have gone up, I think, like 3 or 4x from where it currently is at. But yeah, that happened way back when. So anything's possible, I guess, in crypto.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's very exciting to see this market cycle play out because we all have these, I don't want to say ideas. We look at the historical trends of how things have played out in the last cycles, but we want to think this is different, but it's not different. But the capital channels and the adoption rate does make it different. So that's why this is so exciting. And we do this all day long, every day, because you could always think you're right and something just changes that thesis in about an hour. I mean, we saw it with the collapse of Terra Luna and then the complete underwatering and basically showing how many different institutions out there were swimming naked: Celsius, Voyager, BlockFi, and then the subsequent all the way at the end of the year, the FTX collapse. I would like to think that the market's healthier now, but people tend to fall into the same traps of, like right now, everybody thinks everything's so bullish. I guarantee you there's quite a few institutions out there that if the market did retrace 50% on Bitcoin specifically, I don't mean crypto, like altcoins, if Bitcoin dropped overnight 50%, there would be some failures in the market because people are not allocating their capital and risk management appropriately. But then again, the market's the most bullish it's ever been. But is that a recipe for completely jacking people up? That's the question.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's now a sort of a clock ticking, I think, on the market. Like whenever you get the Bitcoin breakout of the all-time high and the total three is breaking out, it's going towards its all-time high, and Bitcoin's on the news, and your friends start calling you and all this stuff. It's like, well, start the timer because it's not going to go on forever. But that time is usually 6-8 months of like really good moves, even if it is like 6-7-8 months. Yeah, there's a few months at the end where maybe it goes higher, a little higher, but it's a lot of nonsense, and it's not important to sell the absolute top either, but it's the clock has started to tick, but it's started to tick. I mean, we got a lot of time still in this cycle, most likely, right? But yeah, I mean, definitely have a plan for profit taking, not just based on price, but also based on time, because every cycle has the same timing. It's the same timing, it's the same length of time. So instead of waiting for a price target, you sell at your time target. And then instead of, it's only just a matter of time until you take profits. Versus if you wait for a price, you might not be able to sell because your price target may not be reached.
Yeah, based on timing, this shows you marked from the bottom of the last two cycles and then this third cycle. Look at this pink line. This is where the cycle is, exactly at the median between where the last two cycles were based on a time from the last cycle bottom. So things are very similar. And then, of course, you can see the halving progress. This is where we were from the halving to where we are today. Look at what happened last time. Consolidation, little pump up, breakdown, then launch. Okay, a little bit of burn up, breakdown, launch, and then you can't, you can see it. Pump up, breakdown, launch. Launch happened in all three previous cycles. Doesn't mean it has to happen now, but no, the statistics just are alluding to the probabilistic nature of the higher likelihood of that. But I want to get back over to, we got Hyland.
I think your mic muted.
No. Yeah, Kelly.
I went mute on accident when I switched screens. My bad. I said I don't want to keep everybody all night. So how about this, Matt? Share this chart, and then Kevin. I keep seeing people ask about render. Let's look at render, and then maybe.
Yeah, I kind of got to go too. So
let's go in 7 minutes. Let's do it. So Hyland, say something. Kevin, do render, and then Hyland close us out with what today's daily candle close meant, and then we'll cut it.
I would actually. Okay, you could hear me, right?
Yeah,
I would just say focus. The main thing for me, I cover in my Patreon often, is to focus on thinking about taking profits, at least considering, because a mistake a lot of people make in a bull market is they want to just see their portfolio go higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. And they want to see the maximum potential high or growth they can potentially get to. But the problem is selling the top is almost next to impossible. Why are you zooming in on Kevin's face? People want to basically sell the top, and if everyone,
I'm trying to look at render over here. Now I'm getting zoomed in on.
If you have about 100 people trying to sell the top, maybe one will sell the top. This guy's a clown. Maybe one out of 100 people will sell the top. So the odds do not favor you selling the top. But if you're sitting here and you're up, let's say in a month or two from now, if you're up multiples, right? just think about taking profits, and just realize too that this is not a sprint. This is more of a marathon. I think in these markets, if you have capital that you can deploy at the bottom, that's literally the most optimal thing you can have. I'd rather sell halfway to the top and then have all that money at the bottom versus entering late and then trying to sell at top. It's just, if you can enter at the bottom, that just gives you, it's such an advantage rather than entering halfway through. And if you can enter with more money than you can possibly have by selling in a bull market, that's really the best. So that's what I would primarily focus on. Just don't think it's going to last forever. At some point, it will probably come to an end. Maybe it far out exceeds everyone's expectations, or maybe it doesn't, and it underwhelms like it did last cycle. We don't know what's going to happen. But even if you do start taking profits, uh, there's nothing wrong with taking profits. You might think it's early, or let's say you start to sell on something you're up a lot on, and then it continues to go up. I wouldn't beat yourself up over that. We don't know like what's going to happen in the end. So at the end of the day, profits are profits. You basically are paying yourself for the risk that you took. If you bought,
And to that point, Matt, taking profits doesn't mean rotating it into another high risk coin like this person. This guy dumped $1.4 million worth of Moodang for that new Hawk Tua that rugged and lost it all. So if you make a ton of money, that doesn't mean, okay, let me go jump it all in meme coins now and then lose everything you worked for. Always, I used to work on a boat in Hawaii and I learned a very valuable lesson. All the profits we made from tips and everything, 30% went to the boat, 30% went to the captain, 30% went to the deckhand. Same thing with yourself. When I'm trading, every profit I make, I put 30% to my long-term holder portfolio. I keep 30% in the trading portfolio so it grows as well. And I take anywhere from 15 to 25, 15 to 30% out to I can affect my life, because we're doing this to have a better damn life. Pay yourself. Otherwise, what the hell are you doing this for?
and the thing is too is you can, like you said, you don't have to put that money into another risky play like that person did. And that's, a lot of people will do that. They'll just sell and then put it all into another higher risk play. Eventually you got to either put it into stable, or something like let's say even like an S&P 500 index. This not financial advice, but there's things that are far less risky. Like if, and this is an example. You go back to 2017. This was Bitcoin. I'm trying to minimize this. This was Bitcoin's bull run. But let's say you took profits and then put it in the S&P 500. The S&P 500 continued to go up for a few months after. Actually, almost a year. No, about a month or so after. But then the downside was a lot less, and then it continued up higher while Bitcoin was in a bear market for an entire year. And then you go back to last cycle. I'd have to look. I'm not entirely sure what happened here. But yeah, if you sold this first top, it just continued to go higher. Like let's say you were selling here on the way up and then putting it into S&P 500. The S&P 500 also was going up, but the downside risk for the S&P 500 is a lot lower than the downside risk for altcoins or Bitcoin. So even if you are selling your alts, you could still put it into something like that, and then you could still see upside. It might not be the same, but it also decreases the downside risk. So there's plenty of different things you could do, or you could just put it in stable, wait for the actual bear market bottom to come,
Yeah,
and then enter there as well. So
for sure. Now, I think everybody, again, I want to shout out to every single one of you that has been tuned in. I thank you incredibly. And I'm just pulling up, here we go. Make sure before we're going to go over render in a second, make sure you follow Matthew Hyland. That is right here at Matthew Hyland _. Make sure you go over to Kevin Svenson, follow him. That is at, Cobra Tate. No, it's Kevin Svenson _. And then, of course, if you'd like to follow me, I'd be honored. If not, that's okay too. And I am at Kelly Kellam right there, Kelly
Yeah, don't follow
Kellam.
him. Don't follow him.
The only reason I call these out and spell them is because Matthew probably has 270 fake accounts of people scamming to be him. Kevin has another 150, 200 people scamming to be him. I have another. Make sure you're following the correct people, because we're never going to ask you, hey, send me your wallet, we'll trade for you. No.
Well, now we got the check mark, right?
Yeah, look for that check mark and look for that jawline, man. I mean, shit. Now, jump in, Mr. Guy, Mr. Kevin Svenson. Close us out with Render, and then everybody again, thank you so much for being here, and thank you both to Matthew and Kevin for sharing your time with us.
Yeah, I mean, this is interesting because if you look at the long-term chart and just first of all, like looking at, I guess, let me just make this bigger. Can you guys see that? The way that this is set up right now, where you have this peak and then this pullback to this high right here, where we're actually hitting the RSI weekly resistance currently, it looks very similar to this point. There's no exchange that has the history all the way back to where I'm looking back here. I would have pulled it up. It's the same setup where it has a huge pump, pulls back, slightly lower high, and then it has a big run. It's like huge pump, pulls back, slightly lower high, and then maybe it'll be a slightly late runner. Or I think Render may lag a little bit because it was running when nothing else was running, and so the rest of the market's going to come up, and then Render might pump sort of on its own time in the coming months. Just a guess, right? But like I was just showing you, it's a similar type of structure, psychology. You have a big run, lower high, and then you're sort of blow off in the cycle right there. And it's the same like setup here. I just want to show you that before we look at this, we have a lower high, potentially weekly rejection here, with a weekly RSI that's showing a lower high as well, or a potential lower high, I should say. It wouldn't surprise me if Render consolidated here for a little bit, played this out. I mean, we are in a bull market, so I don't think the pullback would be all too substantial. Played out a little bit more of a consolidation down, and maybe retested 50 on the weekly RSI, and then looked for its sort of break into the real cycle where it goes up to a new high to complete that sort of pattern that I just showed you before, or that sort of the way the cycles play out. But yeah, I mean, I don't like how I can't find an exchange that has a longer history. Weekly MACD is suggesting that the bulls still have the momentum that's still pointed up, even though we have a red weekly here. The MACD is saying that the momentum is up. So maybe we don't get that slight retrace I'm talking about to retest 50 on the weekly. But yeah, I think that this may be a late runner just because it did so much better than most coins in this time period. There's been a lot of profit taking. There may be another round of profit taking, but then it may become one of the better performers when the rest of the market is settling up or not really moving too much. Render might sort of steal the show again in that time period. That tends to happen with coins like this that have their own schedules for their major moves. Chainlink was
on that note, Kevin, on that note of their own schedules, it's probably going to run in tandem if there's another large AI push, and we don't know what that could be. It could be from Sora getting released ahead of time. It could be from another partnership, because remember, Render is also tied in with a lot of the devices with Apple, with what they're doing there. There's a lot of different things that could basically ignite that AI fire. And yes, Render's GPU processing, but if you don't understand why GPU processing is tied into AI, then you need to do a little bit better diligence in the assets you're investing in, because these things, you're talking about, okay, here's a car. Why are engines important? GPUs are the engines to not only graphics processing for graphics, but also for the AI limited language models that AI runs on. So this is such an exciting time to be alive and for all of us to be here. And I'm so thankful to have you guys as friends and be able to do this together.
Absolutely. Yep. I was just going to say the daily MACD on Render is getting close to a cross down. So that short-term dip idea that I was mentioning, maybe it plays out. You get a little bit of a dip, and then you break the weekly RSI trend later. But anyway.
At the end of the day, everything is bullish as a mother. But
everything goes up in the bull market.
Hey, doesn't mean that we can't have dips along the way. The only way to get to heaven is to take the stairway there. Stairways are not just straight up pathways. You go up, you go sideways, you go up, you go sideways. You trip on yourself, you roll your ankle, you take a couple steps down, you continue up. That's what this market's about. The question is, what decisions are you making when it's not just up? If you have a little pullback in the middle of where we know on the time basis, like Kevin talked about, it doesn't mean you give up and sell everything. It means you really take into account what your strategy was supposed to be. Are you minding it? Are you acting emotionally? Are you acting on a response? And I talk about this on BitLab all the time. Trading is the same thing as life. Are you reactionary in your relationships? Let's be honest. Most of those troubles are probably not other people's faults. It might be you reacting versus responding. Let's do the same thing in these markets. I love you guys. You're my brothers. We're going to get to that climax together at the very end of this market. We're going to take profits in the right way, and we're going to bring every one of you that's watching alongside us, but you have to make the decisions yourself.
All right, Kelly. It's been a good time.
You look
it was
tired,
great.
baby.
Both you
You're
guys,
3
yeah.
hours back. Why you look so tired, Matthew? You got
Not
a
3
wife?
hours back. Man, I'm not 3 hours back.
He just doesn't sleep anymore. It's a bull market.
Yeah, bull market, no sleep.
Yeah. Well, I love you all, everybody. Thank you for being here, and I guess we'll see you in the next one. And yes, we're gonna do more Three Amigos streams. Bad Fox. That's all we got. Adios. We're gonna cut it. See you later.
Take
Cut
it
it.
easy.